Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss of internet shitlords. Here's Meatball. I know you guys can't get... Oh, she's not giving you... She's giving you the cold shoulder right there. I don't know why. Maybe she's mad because I didn't give her enough milk. Meatball, what's going on? Huh? Yeah. Okay, say hi to your fans. All right. And here are some of my excellent RPGs. The Invisible College, Arrows of Indra, The World of the Last Sun setting. That last one's a setting, not a game system, but still. And I thought today I would do a kind of a play at the typical sort of YouTube videos that you sometimes see, where I'm going to be giving a list of five things to know before you play RPGs, okay? Because I figure, even though most of you have been playing RPGs for a really long time, and I'm sure you know these things, there could be people that could watch one of these videos and realize something that they don't know. And the rest of you can give it a listen and see if you agree with my 5 fundamental things everybody should know before playing RPGs, okay? So I'm not doing this is already assuming if you're watching this, you already know what an RPG is at least, right? So you know it's a make-believe game using dice and character sheets and whatnot, right? So that's not going to be on the list, right? It's not for someone who's never heard of RPGs. It's not a what is an RPG list, right? This is what you need to know to play an RPG, right? So first of all, and like real zero, the zero thing to know is don't get any of the big corporate games from like Wizards of the Coast. Get OSR games like mine instead, That's absolutely going to get you a better time. So let's start with this list of 5 things you need to know before playing RPGs. Number 1, there's only one way to play RPGs right, but it's not about the rules. Okay, that's rule number 1. So some people might be telling you, the only way to play is, this one edition that you have to do it in this certain way. That's nonsense, right? The only way to play RPGs has nothing to do with the specific rules that are in the game, though how good a game is can depend on how well designed its rules are. The one right way to play RPGs is to play it in such a way that if you are the player, you will obtain a state of immersion. If you're the DM, you will be able to emulate a virtual world. Okay, those are the 2 things that are necessary for the peak experience of the RPG play. You have to play it for a long time to get there, but you can. If you run a campaign long enough, you will get to those stages where the world becomes real and where your character becomes somebody totally different from yourself that you know intimately in a way that, makes them seem real as well. That is what immersion means. And that's what emulation means. It is the creation of an experience of making an imaginary world become real. Okay. And that is the real goal. Okay. So that's rule number 1. Rule number 2, the second thing you need to know before playing RPGs. You do not win the game by winning. Okay. Anyone who tells you, you write some stupid book about how to win D&D or something like that, right? They're wrong. That's not how you do it, right? It's nothing about playing the game to the maximum or something like that. It's not about having your character be the most badass character at the table, right? It's nothing to do with that at all. I've seen lots of people who have been able to figure out the way the specific rules are played to make a character that is the toughest, best character at everything, and they're still miserable bastards, right? They still aren't actually getting the point, right? It's not what that's about, right? You win the game by getting to that peak experience of having a character that becomes a living person and has this kind of separate existence from you that they that are a completely different person from you, right? And what's more, a lot of the path to get to that is rarely about the winning parts. It's rarely about killing the most monsters. It's rarely about having the toughest guy. In a lot of cases, part of the overall experience of RPG play, it's often more likely to help you quickly get to that kind of, or quicker get to that kind of peak experience, to end up having characters that died first, right? To have characters that, you know, if your character is so tough that nothing can kill him, or the game is so loose or weak that you know, the DM is so weak that nobody will die, there's no skin in the game, and therefore you can't get the necessary level of risk to be able to embody that archetype, right? So you can't make it there, right? And I've seen in many parties where you have some guys that are like trying to engineer the best character. Some of them are you know, roll up a really good character, and a lot of times those aren't memorable in any special way, right? Like the guy that's doing the character optimization, trying to make the best possible class and combo and everything to have the best character, he's always going to be making that character, and that character is never going to be anything except a bunch of numbers, right? It's always going to be the same because that's, you know, that's the only thing he sees. But I've seen tons of people that started with characters that were enormously suboptimal, right? A famous example is in my World of the Last Sun game. Bill the Elf, the winner of World of the Last Sun, without a doubt. Right? I mean, the game's still ongoing. There could be other winners also, right? But he has won the game. He's completed. He's gone to the highest possible level. He's got the quest for immortality going now, and he started as an extremely suboptimal character. He is now seen as one of the most dangerous wizards, both in the sense of dangerous in terms of power and dangerous in terms of being unstable and dangerous to everyone around him, right? But Bill the Elf is one of the most dangerous wizards in the entire World of the Last Sun, which is humongous. Even though he's got like an intelligence of 5, right? Like he was the worst possible choice for being a wizard, right? And yet there he is. He has succeeded where others failed. And the thing is that the player really focused. I mean, he wanted to adventure, he wanted to have fun. He did all the regular stuff. But a big part of what he did was to focus on playing the character to the maximum. And characters that are unusual, that have flaws, that have imperfections, that aren't as good, are often going to be the ones that are going to become the most memorable to you. I mean, it certainly is the case with me, of the characters I've played over the years. Okay, so you don't win the game by winning. Rule number 3. The GM is God, but he's a clockmaker God, okay? So this is a note for if you're going to be the one who's going to be DMing this, but also for the players to understand how the DM should work. The DM has got to be the boss of the setting. You as the player control your character. You do not control the rest of the world. The rest of the world is controlled by the DM. So you do not jump in and try to get them to alter the world to your whims. You want to alter the game world in the game, you've got to do it with your character, doing things that doing only the things the character would be able to do in the game world. That's how you can change the world, right? So, and the DM's word is law. It's got to be to maintain the balance that creates the best environment for that peak experience to happen. The peak experience requires that the players don't have to think about the world at a meta level. They only have to think about the world as it is in the virtual world that their player characters are in, so that the characters can immerse. That's what helps immersion happen. If the players are the ones that are editing out the world, then you end up having a real problem, because they keep flipping back and forth from a state of being immersed in the world and a state of being above the world looking down, right? So the DM has to be the one that's in charge of that. However, the DM is supposed to be, ideally, a clockmaker god. He's not supposed to be a novel writer where he's like, hey, look at my script. Look at this wonderful story I've told. Your player characters can just watch while I tell this wonderful story, right? Or they can participate, but they can't change anything I want to be in the story, right? He can't be that kind of person either. He can't be an editor of the story that reduces your characters to spectators, right? That's a big problem when that happens, you know. Now, there are some times when things can happen in the game world that your player characters can do nothing about. But when that happens, it should be because the world has set that up, not because the DM has set that up because he doesn't want you to change his big plot, right? So the DM is not a novel writer or a movie director. He should never do that. What he should do is be what's called the clockmaker god, which means he creates events and sets them into play and then lets them go of their own accord. He doesn't try to manipulate things once the piece is on the map, right? If you put the piece on the map, the piece is there, and it has to play itself the way it is. A good DM sees his world as a real place. And so he sets something into the world, and then after that, he never says, oh, I think I'm going to do this with this guy. No, he says, what is this guy going to do? That's a big difference, right? So for his NPCs, for his organizations, for groups of monsters, for any of that stuff, this is the way that the DM, he sets up the pieces into the world, but then they take on a life of their own, have to interact with the rest of the world in a different way. And the places where the DM might not know what it is that should happen next should generally be settled through the use of random generators, which requires a well-written book. Luckily, most of my games are very well-written and have good random generators that can really help a DM in being able to figure out those moments of not being sure what should happen, right? But what shouldn't happen is that the DM shouldn't be playing favorites. He shouldn't be writing a novel. He shouldn't be doing a TV show with an NPC of his as his Mary Sue character stand-in. None of that, right? The DM is the god. He makes the final decision. But the other part of that concord is that he's not the one that is the star of the show, you know? So that was number 3. Number 4, it's very important. This is number 4. Number 4 says it's very important to understand, at least at a fundamental kind of basic level, the rules as written, and then to change them. Okay, so the rules as written are an important thing. You need to figure out what the game is about, right? Like you can't. This is one of the problems that a lot of people in our postmodern world have, is that they all want to be the avant-garde people without learning any of the fundamentals. If you haven't learned the fundamentals, you're not going to become an effective avant-garde person, right? If you haven't learned how to do classical music, you're not going to be able to know how to make something that is different and better than classical music, or that is more appropriate for something. You need to learn the fundamental rules of everything. You need to know the basics of painting, because otherwise, if you just throw some bucket of paint on the wall and call yourself a modern artist, all you are is a fraud, and it's an incompetence, right? And it's the same thing with RPGs, right? Like it is in fact important that you understand all the fundamentals of the rules. After that, though, the rules don't matter as much as what you want to achieve in your campaign. The campaign is the core experience of RPGs for most people, at least for most people that are actually in the RPG hobby. You have to be playing the game to actually be in the RPG hobby. And at the campaign level, the most fundamental thing is the campaign itself. The second most fundamental thing, and the most powerful person in the game, is the DM, right? And then after that comes the rules as an expression of, let's say, what the game designer envisioned for his game. But that's a distant second already. And then after that is the collective group of the players, right? And this is the structure. It's not just, it's strictly arbitrary. It's a product of a kind of evolution, because this is what creates the most effective version of that ideal experience of immersion, okay? But to make the campaign worse because of a slavish devotion to the rules is also stupid, right? You don't want to do that. You want to, if you're changing the game, for example, Arrows of Indra was something I came up with because I wanted to do D&D, but not set in this kind of generic fantasy medieval Europe, but rather set in the epic Indian fantasy of the Mahabharata. And so when I did that, that's great. That's a really cool idea, right? I mean, at least I think so. I think most people have bought Arrows of Indra, which is a gold bestseller now, and they think so too. But to do that, I had to figure out what things needed to be changed to make the game fit that setting, and I made those changes, right? And likewise, you could say The Invisible College is a game that uses the D&D rules, but it's set in the modern era. And it features the player characters not as, wizards and warriors, but rather as agents of a secret occult society that are fighting in a secret occult war against other secret occult societies. Right? And so for that, you have to make a bunch of changes, right? And the changes can only work right if you understand what the original rules were for and how they work, right? And then you know what you need to keep, what you need to get rid of, and what you need to change. But anyone who tells you that, oh, you could just ignore the rules is an idiot. And anyone who tells you, no, you must only play rules as written is an enormous idiot. Okay. So finally, rule number 5. So outside of the gaming table, there is a sort of hobby, right? But most of the hobby outside the table is about arguing over tiny mechanics, and the rest of it is arguing about personalities. So what this rule 5 means is that if you're not playing, it's just like what I said here a little earlier. If you're not playing the game, then you aren't really part of the hobby, right? You may, you could be someone who was in the hobby, maybe will be in the hobby again, but to be in the hobby, you have to be playing. And that is especially, I think, true if you're a game designer, right? Game designers who don't play, there are some game designers I think who've never played. They work for Wizards of the Coast. There's a few of those that have never played D&D and that they're making adventures for Wizards of the Coast. However, most game designers at least have at some point played, but that may not really be good enough. Like if you're not actively playing, then you're going to start having ideas about game design that don't fit the actual play at the table. You're starting to make game books that are meant just for people to read rather than for people to play. And those are very bad games for playing. And the hobby is based on playing. The experience of the hobby is based on playing, right? If you're not doing that, then mostly you're just going on internet forums or social media and having fights about differences in rules or about the politicization of the hobby or something like that. And that latter one is pretty fun. I mean, I'll admit it, right? X is my favorite MMORPG, and I have a lot of fun, going on raids and whatnot there. But to be able to really get to the point of gaming, you have to game. Find a group. Put one together. You can play virtually if you have to, right? I think it's a slightly worse experience, but it's not that much horribly worse, right? Like there are things that are lost in it, but you can still have the peak experience there. You absolutely can, right? And so just find a place that'll give you the peak experience. It might take some time, might take some effort, but you're not going to be able to ever get there if you are not actually playing. So everyone, please, if you're watching this, I'm sure I've got some subscribers here who have gamed in the past. I might have a couple that have never gamed, would just dream to, or whatever. Get to it, do the thing, because that is the way that it's going to be good for you. And the more you do it, and if you actually play a game, I think if you play a campaign for more than 2 years in a row, you'll get a way better perspective of all the stuff I'm saying, because a lot of the problems is also that people don't stick to a group. It's probably better to have a less exciting or whatever group, they're nerdier, they're not your best friends or whatever, just the opposite, they're like hipsters or something, but whatever they are, whatever reason you might have not to choose them, if they are going to be playing, let's say every 2 weeks for at least 2 or 3 years, and the other groups aren't, you're better off with those guys, unless they have like other way serious flaws, like they're breaking one of these other 5 rules that I was talking about. Okay, these other 4 rules rather that I was talking about. So as long as they're not doing that, as long as it's not like the DM is just a script writer or the players are all, prima donnas, or they want to, be able to have control over the world, they're ignoring the peak experience, et cetera, et cetera. And if they're not doing those things, even if they're not as cool as some other groups or not as many of them are your actual, real world friends, but you can have real world friends in one place and play in games with people that are not really, your closest friends, but they're just acquaintances, but you game with them in another, and that can be perfectly fine. That's a perfectly acceptable social experience, right? And if that group will get to the point where you end up playing the same game for years, most of them will probably be to some degree your friends by the end of that. Okay, so it's a way to make friends. So, but look for that. Look for the kind of long-term play that is going to get you to the peak experience of gaming. All right, so I guess that's everything for today. If you like this video, please share it anywhere you think people will find it interesting, or people are going to be pissed off about it. And if you want to support me, I've got a Patreon. You can send me a super thanks. There's all kinds of ways. However, to me, probably one of the best ways for you to do it in terms of you getting something in return is to pick up my products, whether it's Invisible College or Eros of Indra, World of the Last Sun, Lion and Dragon, Star Adventure, the Gonzo Fantasy Companion, Sword and Caravan, or its brand new source book that has just come out, Heroes and Villains of the Silk Road, or any of the 108, I think, RPG Pundit Presents books. All of those, are PDF and they're cheap and they're easy to get. And it's like you're buying me a coffee, but you're also getting something for yourself. So everything I make is made to be playable, and that's the point. And it's all compatible because it's OSR. It's all compatible not just with itself, but with all other things that are compatible to the OSR. And this is the way that you can bring yourself more into the hobby is by starting up a game and getting some game stuff and doing some stuff with those games. So I guess that's everything for today. I'm not doing a live stream this Sunday because I'm playing. That takes priority. Even for me, even in the YouTube world, I'd rather go to the World of the Last Sun than make a live stream. So that's how it goes. But however, you can catch World of the Last Sun's recorded audios in the Build the Elf YouTube channel. So there you are. That's everything for today. Currently smoking. This is Lorenzetti Solitario Egg plus Image Races.